My fiancée live-streamed her bachelorette party. Laughing, "Should I even marry him?" I typed back, "No need." A minute later, I messaged the venue to cancel the wedding, and her maid of honor started calling me over and over. I was 29, when my entire world fell apart because of a notification on my phone. It was late evening, and I was absent-mindedly scrolling through my social media feed when a live stream alert from my fiancé popped up. The title alone made my heart sink so fast it almost hurt to breathe. It read, "Last night of freedom, should I even marry him?" For a few seconds, I just stared at those words, hoping I had misread them. My fingers trembled as I clicked the stream link, and in that instant, I knew my life would never be the same again. The video opened to her sitting in a fancy bar, surrounded by her friends, laughing loudly with a drink in her hand. Music blared in the background, lights flashed, and she was smiling like someone who didn't have a care in the world. For a brief moment, she looked exactly like the woman I had fallen in love with. But there was something in her eyes that night, something reckless, something that made my stomach turn. The comments were pouring in, thousands of strangers cheering her on, encouraging her to go wild and enjoy her last night of freedom. She read the comments out loud, giggling at the most inappropriate ones while her friends egged her on even more. Someone commented, asking if she was really getting married tomorrow. She put her hand on her chin and pretended to think, making that exaggerated pout she often used when trying to be funny. Then, with a careless laugh, she said she wasn't even sure she wanted to go through with it, that maybe she should just run away instead. Everyone around her burst out laughing. The chat filled with fire emojis, people encouraging her to live her best life and forget about settling down. My chest tightened as I watched. I couldn't believe the woman I was about to marry was treating our relationship like a joke for strangers' entertainment. And then I saw him, my best friend, the man who was supposed to be standing next to me tomorrow as my best man. He was leaning casually against the bar in the background, his eyes fixed on her in a way I had never seen before, the kind of look that spoke 1,000 things without a word. My fiancée turned around, noticed him, and her entire energy shifted. She walked over to him, still holding her phone, still streaming, still smiling. The chat went wild. People started asking who he was. One comment even said, "Is that her real boyfriend?" And instead of shutting it down, she just laughed. "Maybe you'll find out soon enough." That was the moment something inside me snapped. 3 whole years together. 3 years of plans, dreams, late-night talks about our future, children, and growing old together. And now she was publicly mocking everything we built. I kept watching as she continued reading comments, laughing when people called me the boring fiancé. Someone asked what I was probably doing right then, and she rolled her eyes before saying, "Oh, he's probably at home playing video games or doing something equally boring." The crowd howled with laughter while I sat there, feeling my heart shatter into pieces. At that moment, I knew exactly what I needed to do. I created a quick anonymous account, typed 2 words, and hit send. "Don't bother." It appeared in the chat, just another comment among hundreds, but I watched as her eyes scanned the screen and landed on it. For a second, her smile faded. Then she shook her head, brushed it off, and kept reading other comments. That one fleeting expression told me everything. I took screenshots of everything. Every insult, every laugh, every time she looked at my former best friend like he was the only man in the room. Then I opened my laptop and got to work. My hands were steady, strangely calm, as I dialed the wedding venue. I told the coordinator there had been a family emergency and that we needed to cancel the wedding immediately. She sounded concerned, said the deposit wouldn't be refundable. I told her to keep it. Money didn't matter anymore. Next, I contacted the church, the caterers, the florist, the photographer, the DJ, every single vendor who had been preparing for what was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. My voice didn't shake once. When the pastor asked if everything was okay, I simply said there had been irreconcilable differences. He offered to pray for us. I thanked him and hung up. By the time I finished making those calls, my phone was exploding with notifications. Dozens of missed calls, messages, and social media alerts. I ignored them all. Then her maid of honor called. Her voice was full of panic, asking what was going on, why vendors were suddenly canceling everything. I told her the truth, that I'd seen the live stream, that I watched my fiancé publicly humiliate me while getting cozy with my best friend. There was silence on the other end before she sighed deeply and said she had tried to talk her out of streaming the party, but she wouldn't listen. She begged me to reconsider, said people make stupid mistakes when they drink, that it didn't have to mean anything. But my decision was final. I told her everything was canceled, and there would be no wedding tomorrow. After that call, I finally stood up, looked around our apartment, and started packing. We had lived together for 2 years, and I knew separating our things would be a mess, but I just wanted to get out. I packed my clothes, my documents, my laptop, my work equipment. That's it. My phone kept buzzing nonstop, but I didn't answer. Couldn't. Out of curiosity, I opened the stream one last time. She was still live, but now she looked distracted, constantly checking her phone between laughs. The viewer count had dropped, but hundreds still watched. She wasn't reading comments anymore. I took one final screenshot, closed the app, and walked away from everything I once thought was my future. As I loaded my car, my brother called. I answered. He sounded confused, said Mom had heard the wedding was off. I gave him the short version, that I'd found out my fiancée wasn't who I thought she was, that I'd canceled everything, and that I'd explain later. He told me to come stay with him, and I did. The drive to his house was quiet. My thoughts were loud. 3 years together, and she had torn it apart in one night. But a small, painful truth kept echoing in my mind. Better to find out now than after saying, I do. The following days felt like I was living in someone else's life, as if everything around me had turned into a blurry version of reality. My phone wouldn't stop buzzing, filling up with dozens of missed calls, text messages, and voicemails that I refused to answer. By Monday morning, I finally checked the screen and counted 47 missed calls, over 100 messages, and a handful of desperate voice notes. Most of them were from her, while the rest came from friends and family who had heard the news that the wedding was off. At first, her messages were angry. She accused me of overreacting, of being controlling, of canceling something that could have been fixed. But as the hours passed, her anger turned into pleading. Her voice notes grew shaky, filled with tears and apologies. She begged me to talk to her, to give her a chance to explain. When I finally worked up the strength to listen to her voicemails, the tone was heartbreaking but empty. The kind of apology you hear when someone is sorry they got caught, not sorry for what they did. She said the live stream was a stupid mistake, that she had been drinking too much and just wanted to make her friends laugh. She swore nothing happened with my best friend, claimed they were just talking, and that the whole thing looked worse than it was. But she couldn't undo what I had seen, what I had heard. It wasn't just the physical closeness that broke me. It was her words, her laughter at my expense, the ease with which she mocked our relationship for entertainment. Some things don't break. They shatter. Still, out of a sense of closure, I called her back on Tuesday evening. She answered before the first ring finished. Her voice sounded hoarse, like she'd been crying for days. She started apologizing again, saying she'd do anything to make things right, that she loved me, that she couldn't believe she'd jeopardized everything for a few laughs online. I let her speak, listening quietly as she tried to stitch together a story that would somehow erase the pain. When she finally paused, I told her we needed to meet in person, not to fix things, but to discuss how we divide our belongings and end the lease. Her voice trembled as she begged me to rethink my decision, to try therapy, to start over. She would keep the apartment since her name was on the lease first. I'd take my furniture, personal belongings, and half of our savings. We canceled the joint credit card and split the remaining balance. But the hardest part was talking about our mutual friends. Some had already chosen sides, unfollowing me and posting supportive comments under her apology posts. Others had quietly reached out, telling me they were on my side but didn't want to get involved. A few stayed completely neutral, pretending nothing had happened. As for my former best friend, he never reached out directly. I heard through others that he felt terrible about what happened, but I didn't care. If he truly felt sorry, he wouldn't have been there in the first place. Months passed after that. 3 to be exact. I found a small apartment on the other side of town, and for the first time in years, the silence in my home felt peaceful instead of lonely. Work became my distraction. I started going to the gym again, reading books I had neglected, and picking up hobbies I once loved. Life was simple, and that simplicity was a blessing. Every now and then, she'd reach out. A text asking how I was doing. A photo she thought I'd find funny. An invitation to catch up over coffee. I always responded politely but never encouraged the conversation. Some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. A few weeks later, I found out from a mutual friend that she and my former best friend were officially dating. For a moment, anger flared inside me, but it quickly faded into something else. Relief, validation, confirmed everything I'd felt that night watching the live stream. Their connection hadn't been innocent. It never was. And now everyone could see it too. The financial loss from the wedding was rough, but manageable. I'd rather lose money than spend my life with someone who was never sure about me. A few of the vendors even reached out, offering discounts if I ever needed their services again someday. A gesture that strangely meant more than I expected. My family took the news better than I thought they would. My mom said she'd rather see me single than trapped in an unhappy marriage. My dad just nodded and said quietly, "Sometimes life shows you the truth when you're ready to see it." Rebuilding my social circle was the hardest part. Some friends drifted away, uncomfortable with the drama. Others stuck around, reminding me that true friendship doesn't disappear in a crisis. A few people even told me I'd overreacted, that everyone gets cold feet before weddings, that I should have forgiven her. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't hear her laughter as she mocked our relationship in front of hundreds of strangers. They didn't feel that sudden emptiness when the person you love turns your life into a joke for the internet. It's been 3 months since then, and I've started dating again. Slowly, carefully. Nothing serious yet, but it feels good to meet people who don't know my history. When they ask about my past, I keep it simple. We wanted different things. It didn't work out. There's no need to relive the details. The truth is that live stream didn't destroy our relationship. It just exposed what was already broken. She had been pulling away for months. Distracted, distant, uninterested in wedding plans. I had just been too blind to see it. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't seen that stream. Maybe we would have gone through with the wedding, lived a few years pretending everything was fine, and eventually crumbled anyway. In a strange way, I'm grateful. Grateful that I found out before making a lifelong mistake. Grateful that I got to see her true self when she thought I wasn't watching. The live stream that she thought would be her last night of freedom turned out to be mine instead. And as painful as it was, I finally feel free, free from doubt, free from pretending, free from someone who never truly valued me. Like and subscribe for more stories of love, betrayal, and the strength to walk away when it hurts most.